Buckle up, everyone, and welcome to Carpool Rugby-League, a show where two rugby league tragics talk everything rugby league on your way to and from work. I'm Shano.
And I'm the chameleon.
Welcome aboard and on with the show. Griffo, great to have you back for another fun-filled week of Carpool Rugby League. Listeners, thank you for allowing us onto your airways. In what was last week, a fairly interesting week where some interesting results, and the Dragons tore the band-aid off and then gave what I thought was one of the most shambolic press conferences I've ever witnessed. I remember the great Captain Graham had a gaffe, and if he was here, I reckon the Dragons press conference would have been the gaffe, because it was an insight into why the club's where they're at. On Thursday night, the Seagulls beat the Cowboys 38-6. The Raiders beat the Storm 26-22. Sets up for a good game tonight. The Panthers 23-22 over the Dolphins. Field goal in Golden Point. The Warriors beat the Titans 28-20. South Sydney in the end too strong for the Dragons, 30 points to 12. Broncos beat the West Tigers 21-20. I come back from the game and watched that game, and that was a cracking game. 38-24, Roosters over the Knights in what at one stage looked like an impossible situation for the Roosters. They came back, and 38 points to 20, the Eels over the Dogs, and the Sharks had the bye. So it's sort of the ladder looks like this. The Panthers, they're up on their own on 12 points. The Warriors next on 10. Tigers, Rabbits, and Roosters all on 10 points. The Seagulls are on 8 with the Sharks, Knights, Broncos, Bulldogs, Cowboys. Dolphins 6, Raiders 6, Eels 6, Storm 4, Titans 4, and the Duck Egg for the Dragons. Griffo, what caught your eye this week?
Well, Shano and listeners, apologies, a bit of a croaky at the moment, but I didn't see too many of the games last weekend.
Being overseas?
Yeah, I was, for those games when I was still there, I was sort of watching the 4-minute highlights on the NRL website. I got back Saturday night and I was straight out to my cousin's 40th birthday out at the Etamoga, out at Kelly Ridgeway. And on the screen was the West Tigers v. the Brisbane Broncos. So I was sort of having a little bit of a look at that. Obviously a close game, and I thought, no, I'm going to watch a bit of this. Just at the end of the game, it was very tight. And I saw the play that I thought, well, it may not have won the game, but it could have. It went pretty close to the winning of the game. Was the Tigers were? I think they were down by a point. I actually missed the field goal, but then I turned around and Broncos were in the lead. Tigers had the ball, heading towards area where they might have been able to put a drop goal over, or maybe a bit more than that. And the winger, the big fella Macassini, the young guy, had the ball. He was heading infield, and then there was a train that sort of collided with him and lifted him and put him over the sideline, even though he was heading back infield. That train went by the name of Katoni Staggs, and by himself, he just he sort of manhandled this giant and drove him about. It would have been about 3 or 4 meters at least, maybe 5 meters from where he was infield, and just put him over the sideline. And that was basically the game done after that. The Tigers would have, it was reasonably early in the count, they would have had an opportunity to put over a drop goal, but that pretty much ended the Tigers' hopes. And, Katoni Staggs, very powerful man. A lot shorter than big Macassini, but he taught him a lesson there. And that's what sort of, grabbed my eye. I thought, gee, that's pretty important. I mean, the Tigers, I really did think they should have won that game. With the Broncos were decimated, losing Reece Walsh and also Patrick Carrigan were out before the game. Carrigan suspended.
Yep.
And then, and I didn't know it at the time, but Payne Haas had left the field due to injury reasonably early in the game. So the Broncos' three biggest players were all either didn't start the game or were out pretty early. And
Yep.
and there was really a spare parts Broncos that was running around. They had other injuries as well. And the Tigers at home in front of a capacity crowd at Campbelltown led for a lot of that game. The Broncos kept fighting back. I ended up watching the mini version because I thought this looked like a decent game. And, it was a great game. But we talked about it last week that this is the sort of game that the Tigers need to win. The Broncos were way down on troops, but credit to the guys from Brisbane. They were able to get those 2 points when really they didn't have a right to do that. So well done, Broncos. Well done, Katoni Stags.
Yeah, it was good tackle. We're going to go through the games in a minute, and when you look at the Broncos, they are a bitter team at the moment. In saying that though, they've got some very good players in key positions that just are able to keep bringing it forward. I suppose it goes without saying that Flanagan has been sacked, and just quickly, about time, Griff, isn't it?
They lost 11 games in a row.
Yeah.
They started the season 0-7, but they lost the last 4 last year as well. You can't do that in this league and continue to have a job. And I got no beef with Flanagan.
No.
He's won a premiership. He obviously, he had a way of coaching that for him in his head was successful because he didn't win. The Cronulla Sharks have only ever won one competition. It was under the leadership of Flanagan. And he had a blueprint that he thought works, did work, about 10 years ago, but the game's moved on. It's a much faster game now. He wanted experienced guys, 30 plus, and it was successful in the past, but it's not successful now. They spent a lot of money on guys like Valentine Holmes, Clint Gutherson, Damien Cook. And just before coming on, I was watching
above Shane Flanagan's.
Oh.
Sorry, mate.
No, sorry. It was
a bit.
It was I clicked on the website. I had some websites open, and I was going to say the Channel 9 News was actually going to tell us the story. It's still going to tell us the story. I wish it would just shut up. Be quiet.
Right,
so, yeah.
Anyway, so, Flanagan, he hasn't moved on as a coach. He is responsible for the roster the Dragons have got. And, yeah, it's been unsuccessful. A lot of talk, obviously, outside and within the club about his son continually being picked. And other halves have come and gone. New coach has come in and the first, well, I don't know the first thing he's done, but one of the things he's done is put Carl Flanagan back into the 18 jumper. We'll come to that later, but you can't blame it all on one guy, Carl Flanagan. But you can say that he's put together a roster that is unsuccessful. 0-7, you don't see that all that often. And yeah, I guess it was time. Whether Dean Young can turn this around, I don't think he can. Unlike Kieran Foran at Manly have got a good squad of players, and they've got attacking weapons there. whereas the Dragons really don't have it. And I can't see that, that they might get off the bottom of the ladder, but they've got to win at least 2 games to do that, and I don't know where those games are going to come from. They don't look capable of scoring enough points. And again, as I said, just watching the mini of the Dragons v the Rabbitohs before I come on here, their defence on the right-hand side was just diabolical. They actually scored some nice tries through the middle with Damien Cook involved in both those tries.
Yeah.
Valentine Holmes, I think he missed 13 tackles. I looked at the stats, and he's a former Australian and Queensland Origin representative, and I don't know if they included in those missed tackles ones that he didn't really attempt. But this is one of your top line players earning pretty big dollars, and that's Flanagan. It's on Flanagan, really. And anyways, I wish the guy well. He's obviously in those press conferences the last few weeks. He don't know what to do. He puts the effort in, but I wish him well in his future. I don't see that it's going to be involving coaching an NRL team again. He might get some other gigs in the coaching sphere, but I think his NRL coaching days are probably over.
Yep, and I suppose just to finish that before we go on to the teams, Mick Ennis overlooked. He walked. He said no thanks. Which actually
what I was hearing was that Dean Young said basically, thanks, but bye.
No thanks. Yeah,
I think it was more a matter of he was sort of pushed out the door.
Well,
rather than it could have been neutral, but
not surprising. The silver lining for that is that Carpool favourite Tom Eisenhuth has been promoted.
The coaching staff.
Congratulations, Tom. Always good to see someone you've known for a little while do well. And although since leaving school we haven't seen him for a little while, he comes from a good family and dare say is still a good egg. So it's good to see.
I thought he was going to move into teaching, but obviously, he's going to be teaching in a different format.
True. Well, we got till 7:50 tonight, Griff, and at 7:50 tonight, the West Tigers take on the Canberra Raiders. This is at Leichhardt, sold out. They're getting ready.
Night there.
Yeah,
big night.
Makasini is out. Fainu is out for the West Tigers. Hudson Young out for the Raiders. That's big. He has done some immense work. So Hudson Young, Josh Papali'i, and Simi Sasagi are all out.
Sasangi's
out as well. So
he's been their best player.
I know,
along with Hudson Young,
and that basically that's Timiko and Tamale now in the centres with Chris and Stewart on the wings. So that's where that is. KO Weeks in at fullback, who's been having some good footy. Look, the West Tigers are pretty much 1 to 19 as they always are. Jock Madden in at 14 with the return of Jerome Luai. That is a very good acquisition to have off your bench. And Wahey, Jerome Luai, and if Jock Madden can come on and reap some havoc, then that's just added bonus. For me, I look at the West Tigers and they're a team. They're a significantly different team than what we've seen over the past few seasons. I think good on them. The Raiders are waxing and waning in games still. They're winning, but they're not winning with the ferocity that we're somewhat used to. I think Sasangi is a massive loss, and so is Hudson Young for this team. I actually think that if they were playing most clubs this week, just that alone would tip the scales in the opposition favour. Look at the West Tigers. The West Tigers last week probably walked away thinking we could have won at times. They, at the end of the day, they're a team that took the Premiers, who probably aren't playing their best football at the moment, but took them all the way and lost by 1 point. They're learning how to win, and they're learning how to get in the grind. Their defence is something that I've been so impressed with. It's given the forward pack more scope to move. Their forward pack with more scope to move has meant that people like Adam Dwayne can do what he does. And his kicking game's been very good. Appy Coruscant as well. But Jock Madden has really steered the ship at times. But with Jerome Luai there tonight, I just look at these two sides, and I just think there's one that seems to be, although they had a loss last week, I've got the Tigers winning this one, Griff.
Yeah, as I mentioned, I thought they should have won last week, and they should have. When you play in an opposition that's so far down on top strength, you got to take those games if you want to be a contender. They've got a similar situation tonight. Maybe not quite to the same extent, but their key losses, Sasangi and Hudson Young, Papali'i, he's a big name player. He was a great, but he's not now. He's a bit part player. He plays small minutes, so I don't think his loss is going to make or break the Raiders. But losing Sasangi and Hudson Young, who both have been in the tries and also setting up tries, that's going to be tough for the Raiders. The Raiders, you talked about their inconsistency even within games. I don't know if they've been smashed in any game. They've sort of been close in every game, and some tight wins, some tight losses. But if the Tigers are to do anything in this competition, they've got to be able to beat teams when they're not at top strength. It'd be a big win for the Raiders, give them a lot of confidence. But I do think the Tigers, I think it's pretty much a full strength side now.
They're looking good.
We talked about Stafford Toa being maybe only last week the only player not in the side. Makasini made some mistakes last week, and he's basically been dropped. But it's still a very, very good-looking backline. Buller, Taruva, Taylor May, Toa, Luke Lau, Lily, Luai, and Dewey. There's plenty of points in that. And then their forwards have been strong. And then they've been able to, as you mentioned, pretty much put the same pack on all virtually every game. And it's a very strong pack. Tigers, it's the best position they've been in for over a decade, on and off the field, I think. And I've got to tip them this week. If they lose tonight, it's a lot of question marks. Is it the same old Tigers? And I don't care if they lose by a point. That's not good enough.
No.
If you want to be a contender, losing by a point in the past, you say, "Oh, gee, well done, Tigers. Give them a pat on the back. They did their best." But that's not good enough now.
And they got the rub of the green with the draws at the moment too. So they need
they've been very fortunate.
They need to bank that.
They have to bank these two. Yeah. But on the flip side, the Raiders started.
It's game to must win.
Yeah. I don't totally discount the Raiders, but I think the Tigers win tonight.
Yep. Tomorrow night, 6:00. See at Queensland Country Bank Stadium sees the North Queensland Cowboys taking on the Cronulla Sutherland Sharks. Big ins for the Cowboys. Jeremy Nanai, Talangi, Reid Marnie, they're in. For the Sharks, Cameron McInnes is in, but Katoa is out. So it's a stronger looking Cowboys.
I think Katoa was dropped. I think.
What's that? Katoa was dropped. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Yep. So
He's a Roxor Diamonds guy. Like, he can do some great things, but he's Roxor Diamonds a bit more rocks this year.
Mate, I don't know what. I'm trying to think of a rock that's just, brittle.
I'm not a rock expert.
No, I was going to say it's no. It's a very it's very fragile. It's almost like compacted, some sort of sandstone maybe. But Nico Hines during the week really spoke about how these are the games that the Sharks have to win this year. Yep. Very, 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 very clear on what his side needs to do. I actually thought that's some good, the way he spoke in direction from him. Blake Brayley's been leading this club well. For me, the guy that's coming back, and he might be on the bench, but he'll find his way into the starting lineup, I think, unless they're easing him in, is Cameron McInnes. His inclusion has just tightened up the middle significantly, and it's going to be very hard for the Cowboys to score. A lot of talk around Scott Drinkwater. The late mate, the mail is he's gone to the Dragons. So maybe with a bit of his future,
he does have a link with Dean Young.
Yeah,
who was assistant coach at the Cowboys.
That's right.
For a few years there.
Looking at that maybe playing a bit freer. I found this a really difficult one to choose. I flick a coin and tend to choose the home team. I'm choosing the Sharks. Sharks have too much to play for. These are games that the Sharks need to win. They're sitting 7th at the moment. They're on 8 points. They're 3-3. They're at 50% win-loss ratio. They're at a 6 for and against, and they've had their bye. They have to win this game. I think it's ultra important, this game, for the Sharks. So I'm picking the Sharks.
Yeah, I'm thinking along similar lines to you, Shano. Both these teams are really inconsistent. The ends you mentioned for the Cowboys will help them. 3 important players: Murray Taulagi, Nane is playing his first game for the year, and Reed Marnie has been really good for them, but he was out last week. I was surprised at how they were back to the bad old Cowboys after, I think they won 4 in a row, but it all turned upside down last week, and they were bad, and they've got that in them. But likewise, the Sharks have been highly inconsistent this year. 3 wins, 3 losses. They've played some wonderful rugby league in some games, and in other games they've been awful. I'm going to stick with the Sharks. I think probably coming back off the bye, they've had 2 weeks to prepare for this game, and even though they playing away from home, I do think, and you mentioned the inclusion of McInnes is going to add some starch to their defense. I'm going to go Sharks, but again, I've got no certainty because both teams are very inconsistent.
Yeah.
A bit like my tipping.
Yes. Yeah. Well, join the club. At 8 o'clock on Friday night, we see the Brisbane Broncos taking on the Bulldogs of the Canterbury Bankstown kind. This is at Suncorp Stadium in Brisbane. There's just, if you're looking at team sheets, there's a definite change on there. Jesse Arthurs is definitely ruled out. Captain's run, they had a training session today, and basically Maguire came on and has ruled Jesse Arthurs out. So Jesse Arthurs will not play at fullback. Payne Haas and Corey Jensen is also out. Jacob Kiraz out for the Bulldogs, but that brings Stephen Crichton in. So they've got Jonathan Sewer, Bronson Sherry, Stephen Crichton, Marcelo Montoya, 2, 3, 4, 5, and of course Connor Tracy's at fullback. So yeah, it's the Broncos. The Broncos' woes continue regarding injury. Just looking at it, they've only named 22 players. Sorry. They haven't actually named a 23rd. So with
And one of those you mentioned is out. So
so with
scratch another one.
Yep, that's right. So I reckon take Jesse Arthurs out of this, and then you'd almost
probably Hayes Perham, likely the fullback, I guess. He's listed on the bench there, but
I would have thought so, unless they're going. I don't think they're going to do anything. I don't think they're going to do anything crazy with Stags. But
you couldn't play him back there. He's never played there.
He's too important. There was some mention that he on one of the forums that he was running lines out there in fullback.
I'll be staggered if he plays fullback.
I would be absolutely bewildered.
I'll be catonied if he plays fullback.
I would be. No, I think they're going to play. I think you're right, mate. With the Bulldogs have their team looking pretty good with Stephen Crichton coming back. No Kiros, but again, Cherry, Crichton in there. Montoya still will do a good job on the wing. Their forward pack's looking good. Villarmy Kickow want to reinvent the form. Jacob Preston reinvent the form that he had against Penrith. Jacob Preston, very strange game from last week. I just they look like a rudderless ship at times, and I think this is where the Galvin Burton experiment it can turn to water fairly quickly. It's last week it was fragile. They were both trying in the end, and in the end it was like watching two halfbacks on the field. I really think I think they've got to bite the bullet and do something. But anyway, we've said that for the last 4 weeks and they haven't done it yet. The Brisbane Broncos still have some very good players. Ezra Mam, Adam Reynolds. We mentioned Stags. Corey Pakes has come into the hooker role. Their forward pack, I've got the Bulldogs winning this one. I just think they've got too many injuries. They're at the Broncos are at the tipping point now where some key injuries in key positions up against a side who are near full strength. Had an issue last week. They're going to want to bounce back. It's going to be tough at Suncorp, but I've got the Bulldogs winning this, Griff.
Well, if the Bulldogs can't win this game, Shano, they can't win the comp.
Well, they won't win the comp.
There'd be... Yeah,
I've got questions on them now.
No, so have I. I've said it all along. But, they had that great performance against the Panthers. And then last week they come up against an under-strength Eels and got smacked. I was really surprised by that. It just tells me that I don't think they're the real deal.
No.
I think they'll beat most teams enough probably to make the 8. I'm not writing them off for that, but I just think they can't compete against the good sides. When it comes September, we've seen it in the last couple of years. They made semi-finals, were just straight out the back door. They're playing a significantly under-strength Broncos, and they have to win this game. Last week, for reasons that I guess not too many people understand or understood at the time, Josh Corrin was selected in the centres, and that was a mistake. They could have used Burton in the centres. I don't know if Sean O'Sullivan was listed in the original 23-man squad, but I think that might have been better for them. In hindsight, obviously, but even at the time, and it said, Josh Corrin's playing in the centres, really? He's he's played prop, he plays second row, he plays lock. And he picks him out there. And I don't know whether Ciraldo too much criticism for that or not, but he should have. That was a bad mistake. Yeah, I mean, they had options. But anyway, they lost the game. They got smacked. I noticed, Josh Curran is not in the centres this week.
With good reason.
Smart move. Obviously, with the captain back, that makes them a significantly stronger side. Steve Crichton back in the team. They have to win. I think they will win. Broncos will put up a fight. That's the team they are under Maguire. And they really fought hard last week. I was quite impressed by what they did last week against a team that I thought would beat them, but they just kept hanging in there. Their defense was very good, and their defense I think will be good again this week. But I don't think it's going to be good enough. Well, look at that pack: Tolte, Pakes, Gajewski, Piakura, Ricky, Willison. Now, some of those guys would be there normally. But certainly a lot of them would not be. I don't think we've ever seen Jack Gajewski play in the front row. I might be wrong there. But he's got the number 10 jersey. Tolte is more known as a back rower, but I think he did fill in last week and did a good job. But yeah, there's... Oh, I was going to say, I've just noticed that Preston Ricky is on the bench. I was going to say Ricky's on the bench, but it's I didn't even know he was with the Broncos. He played with the Panthers for a couple of years, had one or two games in the top grade, and really didn't come up to scratch in those games. So they're really struggling for depth. Josh Rogers, Jaden Hunt, Preston Ricky, Vas Suma, who was going to make his debut last week, but then the injury to the fullback meant that he had to use Perham instead. And then Verhoeven's another young guy. They are really struggling for depth. And the third team they've got to start is not too bad, with some really top quality guys like Staggs, Reynolds. But it's almost a reserve grade side when you look at the depth there. Bulldogs to win here, and if they don't, then there's some significant issues that they need to address.
Yes, I would. Yeah, I would agree. It's This if you're going to be serious, these are the games you have to win, and win them away, which is even more important.
Yeah.
Anzac Day, people, lest we forget, and we'd be remiss not to say how important Anzac Day is, and to shout out to anyone who has served, either past, present, and in remembrance of those who fought for our country. And on Anzac Day for New Zealand as well. And this is one of the biggies. This is the Dragons versus the Roosters, 4:00 at Allianz Stadium. Sees the St George Illawarra Dragons taking on the Sydney Roosters. Billy Smith, Egan Butcher in for the Roosters. Jaden Sewer out for a few weeks due to shoulder charge.
Brain snap.
That was. I think that just shows where the club's at. I think that was just a. I think that's just a reflection of the club, really.
No, I think more, Shano, it's a reflection on him himself. Like, he's a professional rugby league player, and yes, he'd signed a contract with another club. But
thank God.
I don't think that says anything really about the club. It's on him.
Sorry, I didn't mean it like that. Sorry, I should have. I need to clarify. It shows how much he didn't care. You know what I mean? I didn't mean it as a club as a whole. I think that just shows the care factor he has, and maybe reflection of others' care factors, because they,
Well, Holmes didn't seem to care too much.
He didn't care too much. He was, and is there this week.
Interesting. Yeah, I guess they had no one else.
Maybe. Maybe. So Daniel Atkinson and Cade Reed are the 6 and 7 for the Dragons. That's a big in. Like, that's so different with Kyle Flanagan moved to the bench and the others in on the extended bench for the Roosters. It's pretty much business as usual with Billy Smith and Egan Butcher also added to the team, albeit Egan Butcher to a very extended bench. Look, you got a team at the moment who last week found a way to win, dug deep. Cherry Evans is really starting to steer the ship.
He's starting to look good.
He's starting to look very good and do some very good things. Their forward pack is also starting to look very good. They're starting to click a little bit. Led by their captain, who really does, steer the ship in that regard as well. Where in defence, he's last week there was a point in time where you could almost hear him through the mics, just pointing and yelling and whatnot, up against a Dragons team, which is just. I don't want to call them a shambles. That's not fair, but they are going to struggle this week. There is no part of there's no thing. I know that people go, oh, the Dragons tend to turn up for this game. I've got nothing for the Dragons in this game this week. Therefore, I'm tipping the Roosters, and the Roosters will win very well. Griff?
Well, everything points to that. The Roosters have sort of gone a little bit under the radar. I certainly had them before the season started as a top 4 side. I think I actually had them as minor premiers because I didn't want to name Penrith in that spot. Essentially, thought I'll stick the Roosters up there. They've got a great squad, and what they have got at the moment is pretty healthy squad. They've had their injury issues. None of them long term, fortunately for the Roosters, and they've got guys coming back, as you mentioned. They've had guys coming back for the last couple of weeks. It's a strong looking side, as you said. They were outstanding in that second half last week after. I don't know if it was a 24-6 they were down at one stage, but something like that. They were down a long way. Newcastle played some wonderful football, attacking football in the first half. But the Roosters scored a lot of points in that second half. They might have, I don't know what the final score was, but it was almost a point a minute in the second half. And certainly flexed their muscles. So I can't see them being beaten in this game. I do expect the Dragons to put up a fight. Traditionally, that's been the way in this Anzac Day clash, although the last couple of years the Roosters have pumped them. I'd be surprised if that's the case on Saturday. Generally, when a new coach comes in, there's a bit of an inflated performance. We saw that obviously with the Sea Eagles, but they've got a better squad than what the Dragons have got. The interesting selection, and it's been talked about all year, is when are they going to bring in Cade Reed? I didn't really see him play, but apparently he had a big game in the preseason. Might have been in the Charity Shield. You know more about that because you certainly tune into that sort of stuff with the Rabbitohs playing. What did you think, Shane? Because I haven't really seen it.
I've seen him play a number of games, sort of at lower level. He's a very good player. In some ways, this probably adds to why did Flanagan get so much longer. When you've got a player like this who is playing very good football, not being promoted, and it was a lot of you're playing the Roosters. There's a lot. He's been thrown in the deep end here, but he's a good player. He's a runner of the ball.
They need that
developing kicking game. Wouldn't say he's. It's as is everyone at his age. It's a work in progress. The fact that he runs the ball will have the forwards guessing. And if there's space to be had in and around the ruck, he'll go into dummy half and find it. He's going to be the energizer bunny they may need. So I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, well, that's good to hear. I kept hearing discussion about, he's not ready, can't throw him in to this team. The fact is, they needed a change.
Yeah.
What they were doing was clearly not working because the 11 losses in a row. It's very you don't hear that really.
No,
not all that often. I don't know what the record is, or what their record of losses in a row is, but I think it's going to be 12 this week. But you need to change something because what they were doing clearly was not working. So if he can add, especially if he can add to the attack, then that's a good thing for these guys. I mentioned they did score a couple of good tries last week. Damien Cook involved in both of them. Big loss for them before the game last week in the warm-up when they lost who I think is probably their best attacking player in Jacob Little. And he's out with a hamstring, which is a big loss. But Cook, he can play 80 if needed. So, and I notice as I look at the bench, they really don't have a replacement, or possibly Carl Flanagan. If Cook was to go down, Flanagan would come on as dummy half. That's their only option. They're not a team that impressed me. I do think they will put up a fight, but it's not going to be enough. And I think probably we'll see in the last 15 to 20 minutes, the Roosters will run away a little bit and maybe put a bit of a score on them. But I think they can compete for probably 60 minutes or so. I just think the Roosters will bank another 2 here and continue their rise up the ladder.
Yeah, I agree. They're looking good, and these 2 points will help to no end. So. Next game on Saturday in New Zealand sees the New Zealand Warriors taking on the Redcliffe Dolphins. Now, this is in Wellington, Henry Stadium in Wellington. Ins, I suppose Nickel Clockstad out to begin with. That shuffles things around a little bit. However, you've got Harris DeVita and Tanner Boyd, 2 of the must-haves in this side, with Wade Egan in the hooker. Up against the Dolphins team, Cody Nikorima out. No surprises there. No surprises there. Which has Bradley Schneider and Isaiah Katoa in the halves. Looking at this one, I think whilst the Dolphins played some really good football last week, the Warriors in New Zealand are becoming a very different beast. Over the past few years, Andrew Webster really has wanted to build a fortress there, and I think he's doing a good job in doing that. It's really becoming. They're becoming a team where you can start to set your watch by them. Which, when you talk about New Zealand sides, you haven't been able to say that. They do phase out of games. And this is where players like the Hammer, Asako, Avarillo, and Herbie Farnworth has been brilliant, can actually inject themselves and reap some havoc. I think in New Zealand, though, Anzac Day, they're going to want to win this. I think they're going to be a frag too strong for the Dolphins. I don't think it's going to be as wide as what some people think. I think the Warriors are going to win, but they're going to win in a close one, Griff.
Yeah, I can't see a Dolphins victory here based on the fact that, well, a few things. Obviously, the Warriors have been a good side for a couple of years now. And as you say, they're getting a bit more consistency about them. So they come up against a good opponent. But the other thing is that last week they went up to Darwin, and really both teams would have been significantly drained by the conditions that, at one stage there was a question mark whether they're actually going to start the game on time. The parameters they used were such that it was only 20 minutes before the game that they went to a situation where we can actually start this game. So in addition to that, heartbreaking loss, sapped of physical energy, sapped of mental energy. It's going to be tough to come back from that, and I don't think they can, even though they've got some outstanding players, and you mentioned them before. Farnworth is just he's one of to me he's the best centre in the game. You got the Hammer, who can just sort of score from anything, does float a little bit in and out of games, whereas Farnworth tries and gets involved as much as he can. Avarillo's being very good as well. So I do think they'll score some points, but I just think, going up to Darwin and back to Redcliffe and then back across the ditch, it's a lot of travel, and I think it's a bit too much for these guys, Warriors, to win here.
Yeah. It's going to be tough for the Dolphins, and talking about games they should win or need to win, probably wouldn't have expected them to win last week. Probably wouldn't expect them, to win this week. But these are the 2 points that if you can get them,
it turns their season around.
So important. It's so important.
Turns their season around, but I just don't think they can do it.
Nah, that's where last week I thought, it was the one that got away. At 8:10 on Saturday night sees the Melbourne Storm taking on the South Sydney Rabbitohs. Interesting tip. South Sydney have never won in Melbourne.
It's an amazing statistic because they pretty much play there every year. It's not like there was a stat last week about the Broncos have never lost in Campbelltown. Well, they only played a couple of games there because it just doesn't happen all that often.
It's the closest one I can remember was Latrell kicked a 2-point field goal to even it up, and they fluffed it somehow in extra time. Anyway, look, both teams really appear 1 to 17 to their usual selves, except we've got Matt Duffy played a great game last week. Failongo in at fullback as well for the Storm. He was very electric at times. Munster, Hughes up against Walker and Humphreys. Bronson Garlick is in a hooker. Brandon Smith comes in the second row with Tallis Duncan. Cameron Murray on the bench. Peter Mamazelos is off. Cameron Murray is locked. Peter Mamazelos is off the bench. Colin Matangi on the bench. Ewan Aiken comes into the side as well. Look, this is a game. We talked about games where teams must win. Really, the Storm are on the ropes in some ways. And if South Sydney wants to have a crack at winning in Melbourne, this could be the best opportunity they have. The Melbourne Storm, I think, have had enough of what people are saying. I'm expecting a massive game from Jerome Hughes. I'm thinking Harry Grant. It's still their forward pack for me. I just think their forward pack don't have the venom that they once had. It's going to be Tallis Duncan if he can get early ball, use his footwork, Cameron Murray in the middle, and that'll allow people like Keon and Ewan Aiken to come on. In saying that, on the bench for them, Sean Bloor, very solid player, Alec McDonald, as well as Tyron Wishart on the interchange to come on and spice things up. Last week, Latrell Mitchell scored 4 tries. elevate himself to the top point scorer in the competition. That side seems to be humming. The Jack White and Campbell Graham side is still a work in progress, both in attack and defence. So maybe the Storm will see value down that side. I've got South Sydney winning, and you know why. Griffo, what's your thoughts?
It's an incredible stat that they've never won in Melbourne. Given that Souths have had some really good years, and they've been one of the heavyweights for a while.
Interestingly, there was I think there were a few years there where they actually played in Sydney, not in Melbourne.
Oh, so they had the one game. Okay.
Yeah, so a few times they had the one game, and then when they changed the draw to, but the stats massive, like it's huge.
Yeah.
I don't know the exact numbers, but it's not good.
Okay. Yeah. Well, if you've never won, you've never won.
I have seen them lose there.
You've been down there. Oh, was this semi-final? You went down there for 1 year, or finals game?
07.
Okay. All right. Look, I'm actually the positions on the ladder. South's high up the ladder. Just going to get the ladder up.
Fourth.
They're in the top four. They're at fourth. And the Melbourne Storm are in the bottom three at 15th. Now, whenever that happens, your chances are you're going to be back in the team that's in the top four as opposed to the bottom three. But I'm going to defy that theory, and I'm going to go with history. And say that I think that the Storm will win this game. They're due. They're overdue, actually. I think they've had 5 losses in a row, which is unheard of for the Storm. Certainly in the last few years, while they've been one of the dominant forces, which pretty much is all this millennium, actually. But I do think that Souths, again, they're in the top 4, but they've been under the radar because they've not been consistent. And yes, they've won most of their games, but even some of the games that they've won, the defense has been pretty poor against teams that you think you can shut out. And that's the concern.
100%. And that's my thing this week. Defense is a problem.
Yeah. I've been tipping the Storm most weeks, and that hasn't been good. But to be fair, a lot of people have been tipping the Storm in most games and coming up short as well. So it's not the best Storm team that we've seen, but there's still plenty of weapons there. If they can improve Melbourne, their defence, they've got certainly plenty of guns to fire. They need their key men to improve. The top of that list is Cameron Munster, and we keep thinking it's going to happen each week. Maybe this week. I'm going to stick with the Storm. They're at home, but there's a big incentive for the Rabbitohs to create history, and because a lot of these guys have been in the Cardinal and Myrtle for many years, and
yes,
are going to want to be part of the team that breaks that duck down at Amy Park or in Melbourne in general, because they've been on the wrong end of the scoreline so many times, and this is a great opportunity with the Storm in a position we really never see them in the bottom 3. But I'm going to stick with the Storm this week. I'm not writing them off. But if they lose again this week, we're sort of looking at, they could be second last because the Titans, they have the bye.
Yes.
So, they'd be only above the Dragons. That's unbelievable. We saw it last year with Penrith. after 12 rounds, they were running dead last. But
different.
Yeah, I just think the Storm probably, but I'm not certain. Souths play, if they can play 80 minutes of consistent football, they'll win the game.
Yeah.
It's just they can't tune out. Like
big if.
You can't tune out. Like, they've been able to get away with it against teams like the Dragons and so forth. Even the West Tigers, I think they beat them. But you can't do that against quality teams.
No.
Just a really good game. What's this? 8-10 on the night of ANZAC.
Yep.
Yeah, let's tune into this one, guys. Yep. It's going to be a good one.
On Sunday, 2 p.m, we see the Newcastle Knights taking on the Penrith Panthers at McDonald Jones Stadium. Greg Marju out, Mitch Kenny out. So Greg Marju for the Knights and Mitch Kenny out for the Panthers. However, one of my faves, Casey McLean, is back for the Penrith Panthers. That's a massive in. That alone tips the scales in the Panthers' favour. Look, the Knights have been playing some really good football. Fletcher Sharp,
they've been fabulous.
Well. Right. Dom Young playing some great footy as well.
Fletcher Hunt was brilliant last week.
Fletcher Hunt's been outstanding. Like when Bradman Best went down, you went, oh no, and then in steps this kid who's he's just increased his value.
Oh, absolutely.
And another guy who I've got a big shout out for, Phoenix Crossland, has been playing some really good football as well. Let down a little bit by their bench. At times, that's when the opposition tends to lock in. For the Panthers, though, they're 1-19. And even if you look down to 20, 21, 22, they play very well as well. Isaac Tago on the interchange again, I see. But look, Isaiah Yeo in at lock, led by Nathan Cleary, Blaze Talangi in at number 6. Casey McLean's back. Thomas Jenkins will get a double, no doubt. Freddie Lussick in at hooker. I've got the Panthers winning this. And like I said, when that transition period happens where the Knights bench comes on, that's when 2-3 very quick tries could be scored in succession, Griff.
Yeah, I've been really impressed by the Knights. Unfortunately, they sort of got blown away in the second half against the Roosters, but they were really good in the first half. They can score points, these guys, even, well below full strength. Guys like Ponga, Bradman Best, Tyson Frizzell, Dylan Lucas, and now Marju as well. He's handy, Marju, in getting the meters out of their own half. So these are all important players in the Knights team. But the other guys have stepped up, and credit to them and credit to their coach. In saying that, I hope they have a shocker this week. But I don't think they'll have a shocker. They'll definitely be in the fight. It's up to the Panthers to make sure that they don't let the Knights sort of get early into the game like the Roosters did last week. The Panthers are going to be, and I talked about this with the Dolphins, the Panthers are going to be sort of under the pump a little. They are not going to be physically at their best after that draining performance up in Darwin. Fortunately, they'll have had an extra day or two than the Dolphins will have, and they don't have to travel again for 3 or 4 hours to get to their destination. They've just got to go up the M1. McLean back in is a big in. Last week when the Panthers were playing, I was in the Haneda airport, and I sort of I went to the website, the NRL website, and saw it was half time at 18-0. I'm thinking, oh gee, that's good. I think we still got this one. And then I didn't want to spend my whole time just looking at my phone. But later on, I was sort of the WhatsApp group I'm in, there's a lot of activity there, and I sort of opened up and said, "Oh, now that's a bad miss by Edwards," and blah blah blah. And I thought, okay, and so I looked at the score, and we were down 22-18. I thought, what's going on here? So I got to stay tuned in here, see what's going on. And you get that they update the score about every 30 seconds, and I'm sitting there having something to eat, and then they got back to 22-all, and then I'm sort of reading, drop ball here or a penalty here, and you don't know how far behind live it is. I was getting a bit stressed, actually, to be fair. I don't like him not being able to see the game for myself, but
yep.
And then I saw and I knew they were into extra time, and WhatsApp was brilliant, and one of my mates said, "Oh, let's take the points and get out of that place." And so I thought, well, okay, I think we might have won, but it wasn't registering on the NRL site. And so I sent a text. Sort of curiosity got the better of me. I said, "Have we won?" He said, "Yeah, Cleary kicked a field goal." Then it come up on the website, and then my whole demeanor sort of changed, and I thought, okay, it's all right. So and then I saw the brief, highlights, and then when I got home, I watched the game in its entirety, and I really saw a Penrith side in the second half that was really struggling physically, and they just, unlike normal Penrith sides, they could not get out of their own 20-meter zone. The Dolphins were right on top, scoring points, and Toto and these guys normally make big yards. It's just like they're moving in quicksand. But eventually they were able to get a try, the Milky Jenkins. Cleary put in one of his not so good kicks, allowing for the breeze that didn't actually do anything to the ball. But they got them the win with some smart play to sidestep the runner that was coming through to try and charge down, which the previous runner did, and wins the game for him. And that's not something that's unexpected. My friends at the Dally M, I had a look, was quite interested to see what the points were. Cleary got 3 points. One of the judges had him as man of the match based on the spread of points, and the other judge did not give him a point. Herbie got 5 points, and deservedly so. I could have gone either Cleary or Herbie for man of the match, and the other guy to get the 2 points, because Herbie was absolutely amazing. But to not give Cleary a point, one of the judges, I don't understand what game they were watching. Cleary was brilliant in the first half, made a few mistakes in the second, but when the game's on the line, he wins it. He wins the game. How can you not give him at least a point? Judge, unknown judge, you're a joke. But anyway, in terms of this game, I do think the Panthers are still going to be affected by what happened last week and the toll that would have taken on them. So that's going to work in Newcastle's favour. But I think the class factor, the return of Casey McLean, who'll be fresh, they've got to really look to that young man to step up, and I think he will. And I think Casey McLean could be the factor that gets Penrith across the line this week.
Yeah, most definitely. So we've got the final game, and excuse the rush, but we are doing this on Thursday, and the footy's about to start. So we've got the Seagulls of the Manly Warringah taking on the Parramatta Eels. Tom Trbojevic, massive out for them, which
so sad. I couldn't believe it. Tommy, great player, great guy, He just doesn't have great hamstrings. That they just let him down, unfortunately.
I know
very sad.
There's a lot of questions asked. Is this it?
No, I don't think it's it, but it's I heard he was on did a whole program on Triple M. Might have been last night. Such a great guy, and a big loss for this team. Big loss.
Yeah, I agree. I feel for the dude. It's a big. It is a big out for them. It's for the Eels. They've got some ins, but basically for them it is business as usual. Big out though when you're looking at the Seagulls. Cooler will come in for the fullback role there. The Seagulls are looking a little bit, bit suffered. Brandon Wakeham is in at hooker. They're looking like a team that's sort of now with Kieran Foran. He's getting players in, working with the injuries and trying to do his best. He's doing a phenomenal job at the moment, and you got to take your hat off to him. The Eels come off the back of an emphatic win last week. Really interesting, to say the least. I do think it was a flash in the pan. I've got the Seagulls this week, even with Trbojevic out. I think that I do think the Brooks Fogarty combination is doing some really good things, and I've got the Seagulls winning at home. Griff, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. They haven't won at home this year. It's going to be important that they break that duck at 4 Pines at Brookvale. Trbojevic, obviously a big loss, but they are playing a team that's been heavily hit by injuries themselves in the Parramatta Eels. And while it was a great win last week, I can't see them repeating it this week. I think the guy that is the key for Manly, and the guy that I think will be the major reason why they win this game, is the guy wearing number 1, Tolotau Kola.
Yep.
He's a freak.
Yeah, I agree.
And he will fill the void left by Turbo. You mentioned Brooks and Fogarty starting to gel. That's obviously correct. And they got with Olakau'atu and Ben Trbojevic, the threats on both sides of the field. So Para will put up a good fight, but I just don't think they've got the class to win too many games with the test on their depth. They might prove me wrong, but I'm going to stick with Manly at home to make it 4 in a row and to stay in the top 8. But if Para can defend well, they've got points in them with the likes of Russell, Pensini, the Fox, Mitch Moses, Kelly, Papali'i. Every one of those guys in the back line is capable of contributing to tries. And my concern for Para remains their defence. And that's why I think Manly will have enough to win this game.
Excellent. Well, thanks for your insight, Griff. Any final thoughts?
Pleasure. No, I just want to say, echo your opening statements in relation to those who have served their country. Thank you. I will, Saturday morning, I'll get down into the city to watch some of the march. And I'm sure I'll see an array of red and white, and also red, white, and blue, which is normally the case. It's a big day. Lots of people get in for the march and then get to Allianz for the afternoon. So thank you to those who have served. Enjoy the day. You deserve it. And to the players who will, particularly in the Roosters and Dragons game, I hope you can produce what will be worthy of the day and the massive crowd that always turns up.
Yeah, and if you've never been to a march or you've never been to a dawn service and you're thinking about it, go along to it. I know I'll be there, and it's really important for those who have served and their families to see the support, lest we forget. So
yeah,
thank you.
A lot of controversy around the armed forces.
Yep.
Just just for me, turning up is all I can do. I've not been in that situation, but I do appreciate the country we live in, the freedoms we have, and you can put a great deal of that down to those who first served their country in the various armed forces, and we say thank you.
Yep, most definitely. Well, thank you, Griffo, once again. Thank you, listeners. Take care, everyone. Hope you have a great week. And
have a great week. Enjoy the long weekend.
Enjoy the long weekend.
Footy.
Got a note here. Actually, no game on Monday, which I think is a loss.
Yeah,
I think that's ridiculous. I think I don't know whether the announcement happened after the draw, but surely
that's quite possibly true, Shano.
Surely a team and surely a game. Someone would have been happy to put I'm sure someone would have been happy to put their hand up.
But anyway,
to play on that Monday. But anyway, not to worry. Thank you, everyone, and take care. Thank you, Griffo, and bye for now.
Thanks, Shano. Thanks, listeners. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.